run through I did what in this program just to, for those of you that were a bit lost, to just exactly understand again what. So our first button is ask the user to enter numbers until 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we want the user to type in numbers until that particular number is typed in, and then it must stop asking. In this program, I did however right at the start say that we'll have a maximum of 100 whole numbers. So we'll create an array, global array, so that we can use it in all the buttons right throughout the program. An array with 100 spaces of type integer because it were whole numbers. And then I also asked to create a variable to keep track of the amount of numbers in the array. So in mine I called it count and also integer because also these two variables we'll need right throughout our whole program. So in our first button we made our count 1 so that we're going to start with the first number. Then we can, in this case I used a while loop. It will also work with the repeat loop if you wanted to. But so what I did here was then in our array at position count, which is 1 initially, we ask the user to type in a number. And then we do our while loop. While the number at that position, which is still 1, is not equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we may count one more and then we ask for the next number. And then we'll check again. Remember, for a while loop, there's always 3 parts. You need to initialize before, then you can use it as our condition, and then you must change it on the inside. So those 3 pieces must always be there for a while loop. So we initialized asking for the first number, but it was not in the loop. Then we checked if that number is not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If it wasn't, then we added 1 and then we asked for the next number. You could have, if you wanted to, put the display there with clearing it beforehand, then you didn't need the display at the bottom. Alright, so this would have gone through. The only problem was, let's say the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 was typed in the third number. So first number typed in, check first, go to second. Ask for the second, check second. Go to 3, ask for the third number, check if the third was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If it was, it went out. But now count was 3. And only 2 numbers was actually entered because the third one was this, which we don't want. That's why we had to just decrease count by 1. Our display, I showed you how we can create the procedure because we realized that in all our buttons we're going to need to do the same display over and over again. So what we did was we created a display procedure. So just how we did that, we went right to the top. We just went and we typed in procedure and then display, semicolon. We pressed Control Shift and C. It created this section for us. And we did our normal display in there. So we cleared. We had our for loop from 1 to count, because count is the amount of elements in our array. We had our variable for I, for our for loop. And then we just displayed our into string of num at position I. That would have displayed all the numbers for us. So now in all our following buttons, we could just use the word display and it would redo it. If you did not do this in your display, that's also fine. You didn't need to create this procedure. Okay, reading from a text file would be our alternative. So for input in this program, the user will either ask to enter or he'll click this button. He won't do both because the one will override the other one. So he could have chosen the read. So when he chose read, reading from a text file, we need the variable text file. You can give it any name. I like calling it TF. Firstly, we checked if the file is there. So if numbers.txt does not exist, then we showed an error, file not found, and then we exited the button. So it wouldn't do anything else. But if the file was there, it wouldn't do this and it would carry on. Then we linked our TF variable to our particular text file. So now in the rest of this button, we're just going to talk about TF. And every time we talk about TF, it will actually refer to the numbers.txt. Then we used reset. Reset opens the text file and put the cursor at the top in the beginning so that we can now start reading from this. We made our counter 0. So while we're not at the end of the file, we want to make count one more, read out of tf and put it into our array at numCount. In this case, we didn't need conversion. When we read, it will actually put it in the right format, so it will already make it an integer for us when it puts it in there. And that would read all of them. Then we need to remember to close our text file, and then we just display it again. Again, if you didn't want this display, you could have just cleared beforehand and then displayed on the inside, and then you must just remember to convert. We did the reset was for reading, rewrite and append is for writing to a text file. So this save to text file. Let's say we've done everything we wanted, we added and removed. Now we want to save what we've done back to the program. So we'll go into this button. Again, we need our text file, but now we want to write everything in our array. So that means we need an integer for our for loop. Whenever you want to do something with a whole array, you need a for loop. And for the for loop, we need our variable. So we need to assign tf again to numbers.txt. Now we rewrite tf. What rewrite does, it deletes the file and recreates one for you. So we've got now a new numbers.txt, which is empty at this stage. So now we go from 1 to count, and we write all the numbers in our array at position 1, then 2, then 3 because of the for loop. All the numbers are right-lined to tf. So all the numbers are put back into our text file, and then we have to remember our close file because this is our save and exit. For our sorting, we want to now sort from high to low. So our sorting algorithm, remember it's for if. To just make your life easier, we need our two for loop variables and our one temporary one of the same data type of the array to do the swap. So our first for loop goes from 1 to, and it stops just 1 before the end. This is because we're going to compare all the other numbers to this. This will get the first number the highest, and then the second number highest, and so forth and so forth. This j for loop is to compare with I. So we start 1 after I, and now we want to go to the end so that we can check if number j is more than I. If number j is more than I, it means j needs to go into i's position, so we need to do the swap. So we can put I into temp, so that we can then put number at position j into number at position I, and then we can put our temporary one back into number at position j. You'll see my two for loops did not have begins. If you did want begins, it's fine, then you just needed to add the ends in this position. The only part where it was compulsory was our if. Our if had 3 lines that it needed to run on the inside. And when we're done with that whole sequence, it's sorted, so then we just want to display again. Check if a number is there. So in my combo box, there's some numbers, and we just want to see when the user selects a number here to check if that number is in our array. So I've got a variable search, which is same type of the array because that's the number we're going to look for. And we've got our I because we have to go through the whole array. So that's for our for loop. And then I've got a Boolean variable because once I found it, I just want to display the message once. And the same with the not found message. We only want to see it once. So our message cannot be inside the loop. Otherwise it would happen multiple times. So we created the found variable. So when we start, we want to first ask or get from the combo box.text, get from the combo box which number we're looking for. So we need to convert. And we haven't started looking yet. So it means found is false at this stage. We haven't found anything yet. So now only we start with our for loop to go from 1 to count, and our if to see if our array at that position has got our value. Once we found it, then we can make found true. Again, my for didn't have a begin and my if also not. So if you had begins there, you just have both ends in this place. So once we've done looking through this whole array, found would still be false if we didn't find it. Only if we find the number, it became true. So if our found is true, then we can say number is found. Otherwise, number is not found. Add 10 numbers to the number above. Add 10 to the numbers above. So the user is going to type in a number here. And all the numbers that's more than this number, we want to add 10 to them. So again, we have to go look for the number. So our search will be of same type as our array, and we need our I because we want to go through the whole array. Then we have to have our search again. From our edit box, we get the value that we're looking for. We've got our for loop, we've got our if. You'll see this is exactly the same as our search button, because our search and our change and our delete, all of them always start with the same thing. We have to find out which number are we looking for. We have to go through the array, and then we've got our if to see if our number is equal to that number. Okay, so ask which one to look for. We've got our for loop to go through each position. And if our number at that position is now more than the search value, then we want to add 10 to that number, and that should be saved in that number's place. Again, there's no begins. If you had begins, you'd have all the ends there. So when we're done with all of that, we just want to display again our remove number. So to remove the number, easy to learn. For remove, it's for if4. Okay, that's our sequence. Okay, so we're going to have two for loops. That's why we've got our I and j. And we're going to look for a specific number. Again, our search must be of same data type as our array. So step 1, we ask in the input box which number are we looking for. We've got our for loop to go through all positions, and then we've got our if our search number is equal to the array. So once we found the number, it means the number we want to delete is at position I. So that means all the following numbers we want to move up 1. So we want to take the next number and overwrite it with that one. And then take the one after that and put it in the previous one, and so forth. Carry on through the whole array to move all the numbers just up 1. So to do that, we've got our second for loop. That is j, and it starts at I. So it starts at the position we want to remove. And we want to stop 1 before the end. Because now what we do is we take the next number at j plus 1, the number at j plus 1, and we want to put it into the place of the number in position j. So we're going to take the one after the one we want to delete and put it into the one we want to delete's place, and then I moves on. So it will move all of the numbers up for us by 1. When we're done with this for loop, still inside our if, we need to decrement count because we removed the number now. And then when we're done with all of this, we can just display again. So when we're done with everything we've done. Okay, display the numbers according to the following criteria. So the user will select one of them. This is a radio button group, so only one can be selected. So when we do this, start with your structure maybe. So if our radio button group item index is 0, that means the first one is selected. Then we wanted the factor, and I've got a begin and end. Else if the radio button group item index is 1, that means it's the second one. Then we only want to see the multiples, also with a begin and end. Else, then it means it must be the third one. Begin and end with the even numbers. This could have been done a variety of ways. I decided I wanted my for loop on the outside. You could have put the for loop on the inside, but then you needed a for loop there and there and there. You need a for loop for all three of them. So it depended on how you wanted to do it. Doesn't actually matter. Okay, so step 1 we can clear. Our display doesn't work now because we only want to display certain elements. So we do our for loop to go through everything, and then we check which one was selected. If a factor of 50 was selected, that means we have to see if when 50 is divided by our number, if the remainder is 0. That means this was a factor then of that. So then we display it. For our multiples, it means if we take our number and we divide it by 5 and there's no remainder, that means this is then a multiple. And our even numbers is when we take our number, we divide it by 2 and there's no remainder, then it's an even number. Our second to last button is we want to add a new random number between 5 and 50. So firstly, we're going to add a number. That means we have to increment our count. We want to add a random number, so that's why we need our randomize. So now, remember if we had 5 numbers, number num 1 to 5 already had values, but because we incremented count is 6 now. That means num 6 is empty. So num6 will now get a random number, highest 40 minus lowest, which is 5, always plus 1, on the outside plus 5, and then we just want to display again. You didn't need to run a whole display if you didn't want to. You could just add this one number because only one was added. Either or would have been fine. And then we want to display calculations required. So now it's checkboxes. That means multiple could have been selected. You have seen with our radio button group we used if and else if because only one can be selected. In this case, all three could be selected or only two or a variety of them could be selected. So in this one's case we used if, because they were individual. Alright, so the first one, if our average was checked, then we wanted the sum to be 0, so initialize sum. We had our for loop to go through the whole, through all positions. Take each number added to sum, and that becomes the new sum. Remember, our for loop didn't have a begin, so the end would have been there if it was. So that would have gone through the whole array, added all of them together. So now we've got the total. Then we just want to take that total and divide it by the amount of numbers we've got. Because we divide it, this is now suddenly a double or a fraction. So that's why we needed our float to string in our show message. If the median was selected, now the problem with this was, okay, it needs to be a sorted array. So we can't assume the user clicked the sort. So we just gonna go say, take the button sort from high to low and just click it for us again. So now we know the sort is clicked. Now we can go further. If our number of values divided by 2 is equal to 0, that means it's an even number. That means our median is the middlemost 2 added together. So if we're looking for a place, we're going to take that number then and divide it by 2. So if we had 10, it will become 5, which is the first value. So now we want to take the number at that place, which is number 5, if it was 10, and we want to add the number at 5 plus 1, which is 6. So it's going to add number 6 and number 5 and number 6 together, and then divide by 2. Again, we used the divide, so this became a float or a double. So we have to just float to string when we display. Else, meaning if it's not an even number, we want to, let's say it's like a 7. So now we're going to take the 7 and div by 2. So 7 divided by 2 is 3,5, but div is integer division, so it will only give us the 3. But the middlemost number is actually 4. So we can just add 1 to that then. Okay, you could have done this in a variety of other ways. You could have used round or seal also with a normal slash divide, which would have given you the 4. So the number at that place then is the median, and then we just displayed it. And then the last question was just how many numbers were there. So we just wanted to display count. Remember, count told us how many numbers there were. And that is a quick run through of everything we've done in this program. Good luck, people. I hope all of you are okay with this. Any questions, please ask me.